AI in the real world, how Insights teams are actually using it. First, some background before we get stuck into the meat of this. My name is Mike, and I have been in the research insights strategy technology space for 20 odd years. I'm rounding down. And I've worked across different consultancies, agencies, technology firms, and I have been running insight platforms for the last 6 to 8 years. I've probably, through that process, seen more AI research tools, case studies, than most people. A lot of that experience is collated here across insight platforms. If you head to the resources area, you'll be able to search for all sorts of articles, videos, demos, podcast episodes, and lots more about artificial intelligence and case studies that show how brands are using it. Something you may find useful to go deeper is our Corporate Researcher's Guide to AI. You'll find the corporate guides linked from the main menu of the website. This is a deep dive into applications, use cases, and examples of different ways that you can adopt AI in insights and research. If you're watching this video, it should mean that you have registered for the AI Research Tools Speed Dating Festival. This is taking place in the first week of December. Do come along. You can drop in any time over that week. You can book meetings with any of up to about 50 different AI research tools. You can see all of those companies that are participating here. Lots of different categories: AI moderation, qualitative research, survey data analytics, persona synthetic data, knowledge management, and a whole load of other applications. So whatever your research needs, you're bound to find someone here who can help you work out how you can benefit from deploying AI. There will also be a small number of presentations over the course of the week. In this one, I'll be rounding up what I've seen over the year and predictions for the year ahead into a musically enhanced 10 trends for research and insights in 2026. Do come along to that if you like music and you like knowing what lies ahead. My colleague Cynthia will be hosting a session, Practical Experience about Buying and Deploying AI Research Tools in Corporate Insights teams. She previously spent many years working in-house at Unilever and JDE, so she brings all of that experience and her knowledge working with insight platforms to this session. And I'll be hosting on each day Ask Me Anything sessions, drop-in sessions, genuinely whatever your questions are about research technology, about AI, and anything else. These are all going to be repeated at time slots that work for people in different parts of the world. So finally, if you're in New Zealand, you may be able to benefit from live attendance. Before we dig into the case studies for different brands, insights teams, and how they're using AI, I want to introduce a few different ways of framing this concept. AI is everywhere, it's nauseating, it's overwhelming, there's just far too much of it. We can't escape it, we need to get to grips with it. Here are some ways of thinking about it and approaching it that I hope will help. First of all, it's important to recognize that AI is a ridiculous label. It covers so many different capabilities and tools and ways of working with data, making predictions, collating information across different categories, summarizing data. It is losing its meaning as a coherent label. So just be a little bit skeptical and don't be afraid to kick the tires when someone talks about AI and ask specifically, what is it that you mean? Because beneath the surface of that artificial intelligence label lie a bunch of different capabilities, tools, frameworks, and approaches from traditional machine learning through to the more recent buzzwords like agentic AI, stitching together autonomous AI agents that can do things for you, generative AI, retrieval augmented generation, which is a way of trying to combine the benefits of chatbot-based AI with more structured database analysis, and dozens of other specific applications, use cases, algorithmic methodologies. So just beware that AI is losing its potency as a holistic descriptor. In Research and Insights, it applies in many different ways across lots of different application areas. So the way in which AI may be applied to generate synthetic data and personas may be very different to analyzing survey data or working with qualitative inputs. So just be aware that the way that AI manifests in your research activities and your workflows is going to be very, very different. One of the principal reasons is we have these very different territories under the AI umbrella of deterministic and probabilistic models. It's really important to understand the key differences between these two. So deterministic models are what we've come to know and loathe about algorithms, computers, pocket calculators in the information age. Deterministic models give you fixed output based on a specific input. You can trace it, you can understand it, it's maths, you can bank on the output being determined by the nature of the input. Probabilistic models, on the other hand, are much less predictable because they give likelihoods, they generate different answers even with the same inputs, they reflect the messiness of real life and human behavior, and they can be frustratingly inconsistent. So it's really important that when we think about AI, we're not lumping these two things together and expecting deterministic behavior from a probabilistic model. This is where a lot of people run into difficulties. Just some of the key differences between these two things. Deterministic, if you put the same thing into it, if then else, you're going to get the same output each time. That's not the case with probabilistic models like large language models, ChatGPT, Gemini. The output varies, lots of uncertainty. The way in which deterministic models are structured and the way they think, it follows the recipe exactly the same way every time. You repeat the process 1,000 times, you'll get the same answer. Not the same with generative models and probabilistic output. So if you're going to use AI in Research and Insights, you're going to want deterministic models for things where you have fixed rules, classifying, topic modeling, ensuring that you put people into the right segment or make more believable predictions. In the use of probabilistic models, you're going to use them to generate ideas, to examine likelihoods, to understand a little bit more exploratory work that doesn't need to be so specific. To get the best out of a deterministic model, you want very clean, well-structured data, whereas generative probabilistic models can handle much more noisy, incomplete stuff. So if you need very clear audit trails, if you need consistency and repeatability, you want something that's deterministic. If you want something that's better at generating ideas, at handling uncertainty and real-world complexity, probabilistic is the way to go. So the danger in strictly deterministic models is that computer says no, might miss the nuances, doesn't adapt well if patterns change. Whereas the beauty of generative models and probabilistic approaches is they can be much more creative. They might be harder to explain, but at least they give you that, that sort of richness. So if you're thinking about what does this mean in Research and Insights, you might roll out deterministic AI models for things where you need a very high degree of predictive certainty, where you're screening ideas with rules based to exclude them from going forward to the next stage or so on. You might deploy a probabilistic model that's going to give you, a more general sense of likelihood of success rather than a very harsh cutoff. Now, how are AI tools actually being used? Well, they're showing up at these three different levels: in tools, individual tools in workflows and processes, and starting to show up in overall organizational structures. Let's start at the base layer. AI tools, you can use these for point solutions for specific objectives. If you go to ChatGPT and you upload a transcript and you say, can you summarize this for me? The chatbot is the tool. You're using it for a specific point in time and a use case that is clearly defined. You might want to use an AI moderator to conduct an interview with a participant. So these are tools that use advanced natural language processing and generative AI in order to adapt to the input that's given in the interview with the participant. You might use a coding tool that is there to take unstructured data, verbatim feedback, and classify it into different themes or topics. So these are specific solutions that are used for individual use cases. AI tools can then roll up into AI workflows, which are more about connected systems and processes. Now, the distinction between these two is pretty arbitrary. I'm making it here just to help create a framework. Most providers of AI tools for insights are really providing workflow capabilities. It's very rare that you'll get something which is strictly just one single use. But the principle here is that you have tools that are used more for point solutions, workflows to connect things together. What are some examples of AI workflows? Well, if you're going to connect different types of data, synthesize different research sources, desk research, primary research, internal reports, external data, you're going to pull all that together using an AI model to integrate that, to make sense of it, to structure it into an output and a report, then that is very much a workflow. It would have taken lots of different skills and maybe even different team members time to conduct that previously. If you've used the deep research models that are part of the tools that are within the general purpose AI assistants like ChatGPT, then you'll have done this sort of thing. So it's putting together things into a workflow or a process. Similarly, if you have an AI solution for generating concepts, it will often take in data, insights, results of previous research, observations, other things. It will synthesize that with context about your categories, your organization, and then it will generate concepts according to your objectives. So that is stitching together a bunch of different capabilities into an AI workflow. And increasingly what we have is automated reporting that will collate qualitative data, quantitative data into an editable PowerPoint output that will have summary reporting at the top of the slide and package it all together so it can then be finalized, topped and tailed by the researcher. That process is very much a series of tools stitched together into a workflow. So the workflows here is in the middle. At the top, what we have, these things ladder up into actually whole new organizational structures. And this is actually quite difficult conceptually because so few of these exist. There are no real examples for us to get our hands around. But if you think back 20 years, 15 years, there are organizations now that we work with whose structure, whose inputs and outputs are nothing like we could have imagined prior to the emergence of the smartphone or to GPS or to any of the other tools that connect us data-wise today. So the structures of the organizations are very much going to become AI-enabled, will change the roles, will change the teams, the way that they connect and talk to each other. Realistically, today's examples, and most of the way in which AI is rolling out in research and insights, it's 80 to 90% in the tools space. Still, for large organizations, many are in the pilot stage, many are trying to understand what's the potential and how do we manage these tools in a privacy compliant way and handling all the data that we've got. So very often we're talking about tools that have been rolled out on a project or for a team that is working on a very specific area. AI workflows, maybe they're 10 to 20% of the activity. The maths doesn't quite add up here because what I've said is maybe it's less than 1% and probably much less than 1% of what we see around AI and research and insights. There aren't really any examples that come to mind of native AI first businesses. There may be possibly one or two that have entirely reinvented from the top down. So it's a very, very small part of the overall market. When we think about insights organizations within large businesses, it's much more about the AI tools side of things. So some examples of AI use in insights teams. Okay, there's no particular order for the examples that I'm giving here, other than the ones at the start are probably more about pilots or point solutions on towards the tool end of the spectrum. The ones that I'll show latterly, maybe more about the workflow and process change, particularly the final example. But we'll start with Google, and this is part of a paper that was submitted to the SMR Congress in 2025. And it's actually a great series of different case studies for using synthetic data and digital twins. And these are all very much pilots to look side by side. Where is this appropriate? Where is it not? And Google has worked with a company called Brox AI, which builds shadow panels of digital twins based on primary research surveys conducted through video. So they gather all the data, they take all the outputs, they model an individual twin of the human respondent, which you can then use for subsequent research and testing and validating ideas. Google used it for testing a subscription service for online music, ran that side by side with primary sample to compare the differences and to understand. And in many cases, a lot of the feedback is the same, but the conclusion really is that this is great for screening and optimization of ideas. It's not really a substitute for validating and testing with real humans. So the use of digital twins is very much in its infancy, should very much be thought about as a collaboration with primary organic data collection from humans, not as a substitute. And that's very much the conclusion that Google have come to. Next, IKEA. Another excellent presentation case study from the SMR Congress. There's actually a blog article about this on the Insight Platforms website if you want to go deeper. And IKEA have a program they call Life at Home Insights. It's a really impressive program that runs continuously. They have various reporting repositories internally, the open home video database. Anyone in the organization can go in and understand how do people live their lives in different parts of the world. What do their kitchens look like? This program was a collaboration with Ipsos, and it was all about understanding how different people around the world in different countries approach storage, where you've got space at a premium, you've got different cultural habits in different markets. And the team at Ipsos conducted in-person ethnographies around the world with different people in different types of dwellings and different family structures. They also collected a very large number of photos, 3,000 photos or more, and they used a computer vision model to analyze the content that was uploaded. But what they did was they built the framework using the in-person ethnographies to get the analysis approach right, and then use that to train and fine-tune the computer vision model so that it could classify the different images that had been uploaded. So this very much about a collaboration, again, between primary research, primary ethnography, and very advanced computer vision AI analysis that can then go and classify according to the frameworks you've built up from the in-person ethnography. This next example comes from Unilever's food division in Benelux, and the work that they did was to gather real in-person feedback at the point of food preparation. So from about 600 consumers over the space of a few days using AI moderated interviews that were completed in people's kitchens while they had food in preparing mealtime occasions. And the AI moderator was then able to dig deeper to ask questions about specific recipes, about specific ingredients. But the key difference here is that this is multimodal AI. And what that means is the AI can analyze the visual content of the video as well as the transcript that's collected in the course of the interview. So it can detect in this image, for instance, it will see that it's Hellmann's brand, that it's a mayonnaise product, that it essentially the context is in store. There's lots of different components of an image in a single frame that's captured in a video that can be used for analysis. And what this allows the Unilever team to do is to combine the stated feedback that they get from the transcript with the observed insights. And we all know there's a big gap between what people say and what they do. And this AI approach with the Convio platform helps them to uncover those gaps. And what it showed was actually for certain brands, the number of spoken mentions of a given brand was, let's say, X, and when you combined it with the brands that were identified in the video that weren't mentioned, it actually massively increased for certain brands and certain products the presence and the understanding. So the insights that were collected by being able to combine this visual with the language analysis through this multimodal model is really very powerful. There's a great case study that Convio and Unilever have put together on this. Next up, moving industries and applications into customer experience for automotive giant Kia Europe. So they are very focused on ensuring that the experience through purchase is as positive as it can be, because they understand that it really drives the long-term satisfaction and loyalty for drivers. And they had been collating customer experience feedback for some time using different systems, different approaches. But really, this was all about transforming that by an integrated AI-based approach to feedback analytics, visualization, and reporting. And they were able to pull together nearly 250,000 different open-ended verbatim comments that come from different channels, from customer experience feedback, NPS, from online reviews, and build them into a model that had very, very fine-grained topic models to understand very specifically what was it that was driving people's behavior. But not only that, it went from being a couple of weeks delayed to answer a question using legacy tools to now, with it all running through the AI platform with Kaplana, they're able to turn around questions from their executive team within about 24 hours. So it's much more responsive. And actually, the case study behind this shows that they drove a 6-point improvement in NPS over a fairly short space of time by being able to integrate much more effectively using AI from all these different channels. JBL Speakers is a fairly substantial brand in the audio space. You may have one of these, a Bluetooth speaker hooked up to your Spotify account. They conduct regular research using an end-to-end kind of AI connected quant solution, and what it allows them to do is get very responsive for testing campaign creative, different executions, and getting it back into their agency in time to change direction if need be. So they use an end-to-end quant research platform that's provided by a company called NIT. The qual side of things is captured through video-based questions, but embedded in a survey with lots of different quant-type questions as well. So you can genuinely get that structured data alongside the unstructured data. But it has these components that are largely AI-driven, with human in the loop to guide and to feedback and to fine-tune at each stage. So you can enter your study objectives through a chatbot interface, and then it will draft the design of the research program, suggest questions for the survey, suggest a sample frame, and you can okay that, you can tweak it, you can change it, and then you move forward into actually integrating the platform with panels that will then go and target the right consumers. And at the analysis stage of things, the plan is designed up front as part of that framing of the research project, that conversational AI setup. The reporting automatically synthesizes key clips from the videos to support analysis that's conducted on the survey data and generates reporting into PowerPoint charts that can then be edited by the researcher. So what you're getting is almost like a vibe programmed research study, and interacting through the process to make sure that it's fine-tuned according to your needs, but fully in control at the end. So JBL Speakers able to turn around campaign testing within 3 or 4 days with hundreds of consumers, and drive their decision making using that kind of end-to-end AI framework much more effectively. On that, it's just a quick detour to recommend watching this recent webinar about agentic AI. So this is with Rival Technologies, and it's very much about trying to explain what is agentic AI all about, what does it really mean, and in this case it is brought to life with an example that is similar to the approach JBL Speakers were taking that I just described. For Rival, they have a solution, an agentic solution called Insight Reels. It automatically pulls together verbatim responses that are typed in, that are submitted by audio only or submitted as video open ends. It uses the context you provided, the objectives you set, to identify the most important themes, and then it automatically generates show reels and clips together the different components into an output. Now, the output is actually narrated by an AI-generated voice, and where those verbatims only exist in text, the AI voice narrates them as well. So it's an agentic approach to synthesizing data and pulling it together into one place. So very much worth a watch of that. Now back to our case studies, and this is very much about workflow and culture change for Novartis, deploying a generative AI insights and knowledge synthesis platform, the DeepSights solution from Market Logic Software in this case, and it was connected to all of the different sources of insights and data that were available: primary, secondary, reports, internal sources, CRM data, external data, trends data, subscriptions. So there's lots and lots of different sources that come into this, and it's connected and integrated with the workflow, the tools that different teams in Novartis use, like Microsoft Teams, for instance. So you can actually interact with Microsoft Teams. You can chat. You can say, hey, Sherlock, which is the name of the knowledge management generative AI tool here, ask it a question in the middle of a meeting with colleagues, and you can get data back where it exists. Now, it operates like a ChatGPT for insights that's got this kind of ubiquitous presence. It has around about 10,000 weekly users across the whole organization. So very, strong engagement, very good metrics for performance, but also it helped to drive significant reduction in primary research spend as well. So the capacity to use AI to connect data that you already know to make your research spend and budget much more efficient is quite a serious attraction here. Now, the last of the case studies I want to talk about is with Reckitt, and this is a fantastic presentation that was given, again, by Elaine Rodrigo, who's the global head of data analytics insights for Reckitt. She gave this at the most recent SMO Congress in Prague, and it actually builds on several previous presentations she's given about the deployment of generative AI tools in Reckitt. So, as an insights lead, Elaine was able to effectively grab ownership for a lot of the generative AI work streams for marketing. And this was, I think, one of the big takeaways for me is insights leaders who get out in front of this and own it rather than being on the receiving end of other people's decisions can really make a difference and actually put insights at the heart of decision-making processes. Her team took innovation as the primary focus for deploying generative AI in insights and making sure that they had corporate buy-in from senior teams, that they had the right metrics from the start to assess and prove the success, and a clear framework for whether or not to build internally, to buy from an external tech partner or an agency, or to partner in a way that doesn't really fit in either of those two boxes. And what drives that in Reckitt for AI deployments is very much the level of data that's held internally and the level of expertise. So where there is an awful lot of data that exists already on sales or from subscriptions to data that that they own, then there's a strong case potentially to build that solution internally using available tools like OpenAI and APIs. Where that data isn't owned internally, where it exists externally, for example, with panel data, or even the expertise to work and build those solutions is external, then they tend to go outside. So there's a clear sort of two by two matrix framework for prioritizing whether to build or buy. Now, what did they build and what did they buy? The build side of this, the internally created tools, were for insight generation, so that insights generation assistant, and concept creation. So how does that work? Well, the insights generation assistant builds on top of a connected knowledge management infrastructure that's pulling in all of the previous reports, all of the consumer data into one place, and then acts as a conversation partner for anyone in the marketing or innovation teams to say, I'm looking for some fresh insights into this category, into this audience, into this geography, and it will, it will hold the conversation with them and start to, proactively deliver key insights for those audiences that can then be used as a springboard for further idea generation. The concept generator, again, takes various inputs, all of the knowledge, all of the learning about what works, all of the consumer and audience data, and will create suggested concepts with headlines, reasons to believe, key features, and visuals that can then be tested. So these are two tools that are very much about internal knowledge capability, building on all of the years of concept testing and product launch successes and failures that Reckitt has seen, building those out into AI-based solutions. They built partnerships for synthetic screening. This one, I think, was with NIQ Bases, and it's all about being able to get that first pass of, is this concept likely to succeed or fail in testing with a synthetic audience. And this is, the more this is tested, the more effective it becomes, the more it's fine-tuned. Next on the plan and in exploration right now is AI moderated qualitative research. So looking at ways to refine and build concepts that have been developed maybe over a weekend with some in-depth qualitative research, but using an AI moderator to get those rich insights. The impact of this has not only been on the efficiency side of the equation, so 70% efficiency gains in terms of time spent, money spent, quantitative metrics that prove the value of this, but more impressively, double the quality scores. So there's a metric within Reckitt for concept testing that says, what proportion of ideas are landing above a certain threshold in the action framework to take forward, and the ideas that are now being fed into that, tested with real humans through the long-established NIQ Bases concept screening approach, getting double the quality levels that they were prior to putting this in place. So what it means is that you've got AI driving insights generation at the heart of it, into automated concept creation. Obviously, there's fine-tuning and refinement, human in the loop throughout all of this. You've got synthetic screening to make sure that you don't have any dud ideas going into primary research and being paid for human testing. And then in the future, hopefully, better refinement of those ideas using AI moderated qual. Already impact being shown at both the efficiency and the output level. So what lessons can be drawn from all of this? Well, I'd take three. There are probably lots of others that other people may take. The first, inevitably, you'd expect me to say this, is choosing the right tools. Now, it's easy to extrapolate from your individual experience of using Claude, OpenAI's ChatGPT, whatever the tool is, and thinking, wow, this is fantastic, it's helped me enormously, it's the solution for XYZ in my research team, in my organization. Now, not always the case. Point solutions that are built for research specific applications have a number of advantages over these general purpose tools. There's a good article here with contributions from across the industry that you can read on the Insight Platforms blog. But in general terms, I'll run you through some of the key differences here. So to start with, if you're going to use a general purpose AI tool, it's quite hard to get those efficiencies. So when you're setting things up, you need to reprompt it. Even when they have prompt libraries built into the Teams product, it's not so easy to to reuse things. Your purpose-built AI tools will generally have much more well-structured repositories, libraries, template batteries that make it much easier to repeat studies with just small tweaks. Next, the output that you get, even from very capable models, the latest models like Claude, the Sonnet 4.5, you're still going to get that variation each time. It's back to the probabilistic versus deterministic. Now, where these tools have been refined and built specifically for research, if consistency is important, those guardrails have been built into these solutions. The most important thing for your stakeholders will be showing where these insights have come from as well. So you need to be able to prove where the data, where that insight, where the AI output has come from. It's not always easy to do that with the generic solutions. For purpose-built research tools, the good ones will have it as their absolute core. So being able to link back the citations, the link sourcing, and so on. Connecting tools, this is changing, it is getting better, but a lot of IT departments are wary about enabling this. The general purpose tools, they do have connections to other data sources like Google Drive and so on, and they do have some plugin integration. This is changing, but the purpose-built research tools are much more likely to have the integrations that you need with survey data sources, with trackers, with data visualization platforms, and your research knowledge management tools. On the governance side of things, this is incredibly important, giving hierarchical permissions, giving role-based access, making sure you've got audit logs, who did what, who did when, and that is far more likely to be a feature of these purpose-built tools than it is on the generic side of things. And research knowledge is built into these purpose-built tools. It's the context, it's the industry language, the workflows, all of that unspoken stuff that you don't realize is missing until you do when you're using something like ChatGPT. The cost side of things is a bit different. You can spin up a Pro or a Plus subscription to ChatGPT for $20 a month. It's next to nothing, and it is very low cost for incredibly powerful capabilities. You will pay more for purpose-built research solutions, but if you're in a corporate team, you will see that paid back with the efficiencies that you get. So it can be deceptively cheap to use the general purpose tools. You are going to pay a higher software cost, you are going to pay higher running costs, but actually what you'll get is those efficiencies that come from all of those previous steps built in to the research-specific tools and the benefits that you get. So, general purpose tools, great. Individual work, brainstorming, first pass stuff, you need it quickly, you're working on your own, great. If you want repeatability, if you want consistency, if you want to avoid the hallucinations and that kind of like redoing the thing that you did last time, then this is probably not quite the right solution. Those purpose-built tools are much better at sourcing evidence, citations, integrating with the rest of your research tech, that kind of governance, and auditing. But you're probably going to pay more, and obviously there's a risk that different vendors are going to try and lock you in. So that's something you do need to be wary of. You don't want to end up in a situation where all your data's in this one vendor's format and you can't get it out. So buying the right tools, very, very important. This is a session I plugged earlier that my colleague Cynthia will be leading at the Research Tools Festival. Next, there's a lot of response to new solutions in the AI space, which is we're going to be finished by this, or everything's going to switch to that. And the reality is it's not either or. The future is going to be a blend of legacy approaches, established methods, and some of these new tools. What does that look like in practice? Well, for primary research, bear with me because this takes some building. We've always had the researcher on the one side, and I'm using researcher in a broad sense because it could be your agency, it could be your in-house team, it might be you as an individual, and then you've got a participant who might be a consumer, an audience member, a viewer, whoever in whichever part of the world. You're trying to understand the person. Historically, researchers have all been humans. Slowly, researchers are being enhanced by what I'm calling here agents. Agents is an unfair label. People use it sloppily, so I think I will as well. But what I'm really talking about is AI-powered or AI-enabled assisted researchers. On the participant side of things, we want to think they're all humans. We know that there's plenty of bot fraud that goes on in online panels, but the reality is what we've historically done is have human-to-human interactions for research. Increasingly, we're seeing human to agent, and not just for the nefarious, fraudulent bot-based stuff, but synthetic audiences, personas. We've got humans asking questions of synthesized outputs like AI personas. Now, what does this mean in practice? You've got the human-to-human box here. This is this kind of legacy, established, traditional approach. Interviews, one-to-one interviews, online surveys, ethnographic studies. You've got a human designing it, analyzing it, and you've got a human answering the questions on the other end. The human to agent box, I've just mentioned this briefly. You might have a human researcher, but an AI participant in some format. Maybe it's a digital twin, like the examples there with Google earlier. Maybe it's an AI persona. Increasingly, the reporting of research, his outputs, is being packaged as AI personas that you can interact with and ask questions of. You've also got this agent researcher human participant. So maybe you've got an AI moderator asking questions of real people. Maybe you've got smart probes. Really, further back in the process, you've got AI tools to help design research and analyze research. So the agent is increasingly a component of the researcher side of things, even when it's purely human participants. And the scary stuff, the AI to AI, so agents asking agents. Now, people will disparage this as, an AI moderator asking questions of a synthetic sample point and just going on until the end of the universe with nonsense. Now, it doesn't have to be like that. So autonomous insights processes that are proactively generating insights, like we saw with the Reckitt example, proactively generating concepts that can then be synthetically screened autonomously. These kind of processes can be happening on autopilot in the background, and it's not just about new ideas, innovations, can be for all sorts of things, can be competitor alerts, can be monitoring consumer trends through third-party sources for social listening. So there's lots of ways in which increased levels of autonomy will start to underpin the way that research and insights is conducted. Doesn't mean it's going to displace the other three boxes, but it will be a component of this mix. So it's not about everything switching to AI and all the human to human being redundant. It's about ensuring that the strategy for planning ahead incorporates elements of all four boxes. And finally, it really is still about the people. It's not the economy stupid, it's the people stupid. There is a useful article on the BCG website, and this is Ancient History in AI Terms now. It's late December 2024, the Leader's Guide to Transforming with AI. It posits the 70-20-10 framework, and this is how it looks. For any AI deployments, 10% of the value and the effort is going to be in the algorithms. So this is really about how the AI is designed to be able to, conduct the analysis, implement the agents, whatever it is. 20% is going to be in the technology. So, the actual applications and the tools that wrap around those core models. 70% is people and processes. If you work in a large organization, you work in an insights team, you know this. It is all about trying to convince people, trying to engineer change. The transformation side of things is the hardest part. And it's no different here. We all think that it's all about AI, technology, algorithmic capability. The truth is that nearly 3/4 of it is all about people and process and change. Now, this is a neat heuristic for thinking about things. Obviously, these numbers are not hard and fixed, but generally, when you're talking and thinking about AI implementation in your own organizations for insights, this is the hierarchy of challenges that you have. And that's it. That was a brief overview of some of the bigger brands and how their insights organizations are adopting and rolling out AI. I hope you found that useful, and I hope that you will be joining us at the AI Research Tools Speed Dating Festival and coming along to meet with some of our nearly 50 AI research tool providers. Thank you.